Oh, even earlier than that, in the story of Samson and Delilah, I'd say earlier than that, meaning that Isis became very lunar right before the Common Era with the influx of Greek and Roman thought. And then she gives birth to the sun as the moon reflecting the rays, the full moon reflecting the rays of the sun. And this story of the full moon reflecting the rays of the sun can also be found in the Bible in a slightly earlier period, a few centuries earlier, in the story of Samson and Delilah. And so the moon is actually cutting off the sun's rays in the story of Samson and Delilah, and she's weakening him in this manner. So that was another way of expressing. See, there's a classic example of a myth expressing the natural world, and there are many more of these in the Bible. If you're looking at something supernatural that's unbelievable, because we haven't seen it happen and we don't believe this stuff anymore, our world is a lot smaller in the sense that we know exactly what's going on in a lot of different places at different times, rather than, hey, over the mountain there could be something magical going on. We're pretty sure there isn't. I mean, every life is magical in itself, but I'm talking about these great, miraculous tales that were in, like, the Iliad and... Yes.
I actually have a good one right here in the Bible itself. I believe it's Mark 6:49. But when they saw him walking on the lake, sorry, I apologize. It's earlier than that. Here it is. 48. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them walking on the lake. And that just immediately reminded me of, like, the dawn sunrise comes up and there is a reflection on the water.
Absolutely.
And poof, there's the sun walking on the water. And I understood the basic concept going on behind where everything was going with all of this. I mean, they even hint about it in the ZEITGEIST film by having at one point the sun kind of coming up and reflecting off the water for a little bit. They never actually speak about it, but it's that imagery that clearly helps me finally get to another level of seeing the synchronicity involved within the metaphor of the entire tale.
Yes, well said. Well said. And it does change your perspective of reality to know this. I've had, even all the people who are crabbing and yakking and complaining and whatnot, I still get people all the time telling me over the years how freeing and liberating this knowledge is. It ties everything together. It makes you not first of all, you don't have to throw the stories away if you know what they mean. They actually are conveying some very important information. And you also don't have to believe in them as something that has happened on planet Earth as historical fact. And you also don't have to have this narrow perspective of reality that hates everything outside of these stories and this book, the Bible, for example, which we are taught. And you see that type of bias and bigotry expressed in the Christian world, in many places, in the fundamentalist arena. And it's very spiteful and hateful, and I've been the object of this derision, this Christian bigotry, believe me. There's some really, really hot-headed people out there, boy. And
it all tends to really be because they are egoically identifying with this whole concept of, I am this religion, and I must do X, Y, Z, or else. And they have this built-in psychological defense mechanism almost to keep them from believing almost anything. I mean, I've watched 3 different debunking movies on your stuff during the last 2 weeks, and I tell you, each one of them, I've noticed that I gained very little actual new knowledge from, and most of the time they either twisted your words around on what was actually being said, or they were like, oh, no, that's not what the Bible means, this is what it means. and they're just really basically saying, nah, this is what it is, you can't stop us from believing it. And that level of ego identification comes with a serious cost of your own liberties, as well as your own capability of thinking outside of a culturally contained box.
Yes, you're very well spoken. That's for sure. They are, I mean, don't forget the loss of humanity in that a significant amount of this stuff is just pure trash and hate speech as well. Trying desperately to smear the messenger so the message won't get paid attention to. And I'm really just trying to point out stuff that I've been digging up with tremendous effort over a period of decades now, and actually literally have dug archaeologically, but also have spent just countless hours digging through texts in a variety of languages, dating back thousands of years, examining artifacts, and I'm just picking it up and I'm pointing it out. Here, look at this. This is how I see it. This is how I interpret it. You can have this knowledge. You can look at this artifact yourself and interpret it the way you want to. But instead of looking at all of that, these people spend a significant amount of time throwing rocks at me instead of looking at what I've found. And that loss of humanity is something that they're suffering too, because they cannot get along with, appreciate, relate to, empathize with, or love anyone who isn't in that blinkered, narrow tunnel vision that they have created for themselves or allowed to be created by this frankly mean doctrine and dogma. Cruel, anti-human, human-hating, sexist dogma that permeates the Abrahamic cultus from Old Testament to New Testament to Last Testament, which is called the Quran. That whole Abrahamic strain is cruel and brutal and sexist and patriarchal and cavemanish and Neanderthalish, and it should be tossed aside, stripped of this sanctity that does not allow us to look at it with a critical eye. And that's all we're talking about here. And you're so right that people will identify themselves with that thing that I just described. Now, why would you want to identify yourself with that thing I just described? It's not a good thing.
Well, they haven't necessarily tried to do it to themselves. I think that it's a cultural thing. As a matter of fact, a guy named Derek Jensen specifically calls it the dominator culture. Like what you call those Abrahamic faiths, he just flat out calls the whole dominator culture that is currently dominating all of civilization through various means between economic, the economic hitmen they talk about in the second film in Addendum, as well as with something like, say, Zionism, where they uphold an entire country and an entire group of people at the cost of another entire group of people, and it's, no matter what way you cut it, people are being harmed, and this is not something that should be tolerated by the rest of humanity as a species, as a whole. At least that's my opinion.
Well, that's it. That's that mean Abrahamic, Saharasian, harsh culture that is just, yes, it's absolutely a dominator. And it spreads through just, through violence, aggression, and bigotry, and conceit, and supremacy. And that's what you're describing with this, when you said Zionist. Obviously, we're talking about the supremacist stuff in the Old Testament that is still subscribed to by a very small, but significant group of people. And that same strain is what we're talking about. Are there good things that have come along with this ideology Yeah, but like I like to say, you can find seeds in dog doo-doo. Why not go and buy a bag of seeds? And so I'm offering the seeds as are other people, but that's not, so we don't need to be scraping through this garbage, this crap. That is.
Yeah, I call it on the internet sifting through the silt for the nuggets of gold and wisdom. And it's not just on the internet, but you can really kind of do that sort of thing in all of life, in my opinion. I think people don't look enough right in front of them or right next to them for the wisdom and possibility that is all around them. They too often are focused on the hypnotist in the corner of our living rooms that's like rectangular and has buttons.
Hey, it's a good thing though. It's a good thing. You can learn about other cultures in all kinds of parts of the world that way. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Well, this is why I like to focus on the cosmological knowledge that is hidden behind these myths that are being taught to us as having happened on planet Earth. Now, my background in all of these different myths and speaking different languages and having lived in different countries or traveled through them, having a variety of experiences, living in cosmopolitan cities like New York and Los Angeles, and therefore associating with people of every stripe for many years. I cannot be culturally bigoted in the sense that, I say my God is bigger and better than yours. My God was created by, or my God was, expressed in this book that came out of this 90-mile strip of basic desert land, and that's the only thing that contains my God is this book here, and my God is not in the hills and the mountains and in the rest of creation. It's separate and apart from me, even. This I see all of that as pathology, and that's the pathology that's killing us. And I wanted to express this. I really wanted to be more environmentally minded in my vision when I was younger, and I started off in this sense of trying to get people to be more respectful of the earth and keep it clean and not destroy it and bring us to the brink of extinction.